Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Speed Force Media Podcast, the show where every Friday we recap and discuss the news that has happened in the world of comic book movies over the last week. My name is Eleanor.
I'm Derek.
And in today's episode, we have 6 hot topics for you today. The first one is the Black Panther Wakanda Forever opening weekend predictions. The second is Zack Snyder responds to rumors he's talked to James Gunn. James Gunn says there will be a wait before we get a DCU slate announcement. Stargirl actor Breck Bassinger was kept in the dark about show cancellation. Jason Momoa clarifies his statements about his dream project and possibly teases something else. And finally, our ranking of the upcoming MCU projects. Starting with Black Panther Wakanda Forever. It's already getting really good reviews. Tonight is opening night that we're recording this. So it is set to open at $175 to $200 million. That's the projections. Since the last time Black Panther opened up domestically, its opening weekend was $202 million. I think it could easily hit this, and I think it could even soar past that. There's always a really good market for movies, I feel like, in November, December, January, those kind of holiday months. So I think they timed it really well, and I think it's going to be a big one, especially because people want to see what happened after, tragically, Chadwick Boseman passed away. They want to see how this movie was affected by it. I think everyone's just a little bit sickly curious, and we want to see how well they honored him. Derek, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, they also want to see, the continuation of the story and to see the continuation of Wakanda after the events of Avengers Endgame, because we really don't know too much about what's going on with their culture. And the first Black Panther movie was nominated for 6 Oscars. It won 3 Oscars, made over $1 billion at the box office. So yeah, if this movie is good, which currently on Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score is sitting at an 85% and an audience score at 95%. And that could go up, that could go down. So we'll stay tuned to that. But if it has great word of mouth, yeah, I would not be surprised if this movie went gangbusters and even overshadowed the first one. Now, that all depends on how good the movie is. I think for once, going into a Marvel movie, I really don't know what to expect, because even from the trailers, it looks epic, it looks emotional, but there's so many different theories about if this movie even takes place during the blip or if parts of it does, and I'm really excited to see that. And I really have no predictions or expectations. I'm just looking for a good movie and hope it delivers. And yeah, like you said, I hope it's respectful to Chadwick Boseman's legacy and his memory, and hopefully we can get some sort of information or closure for his character. I wonder, there is theories that a lot of the movie takes place during the blip. I wonder if that's true anyways. This is all just speculation. We'll find out tomorrow. If they come back from the blip and there's a new actor playing Black Panther. Now, I don't really buy into that just because Kevin Feige and Ryan Coogler has said that they just feel like it's not time to recast for Black Panther and T'Challa. So I don't necessarily buy into that theory, but who knows? Maybe it's true, and we'll find out soon. But yeah, can't wait to see it, and I'm sure it's going to be wildly successful.
Right. I've also heard that Namor is a huge part of this, and I'm kind of interested to see that because, I'm kind of your average moviegoer, I guess you could say, and he just sounds a lot like Aquaman to me. So I'm just like, okay, I'm here for a Marvel version of Aquaman, and I've heard he's kind of evil, so that he may even be the villain of this movie. So I'd be interested in seeing Aquaman as a bad guy.
For sure.
Speaking of Aquaman, well, he was kind of the brainchild, at least in a small way, of Zack Snyder, and Zack Snyder is responding to rumors that he talked to James Gunn. With the launch of DC Studios, and with Gunn and Safran leading it for Warner Brothers Discovery, many have wondered if Snyder would perhaps be one of the filmmakers to be contacted about returning to the DCU. During a recent appearance on the Preston and Steve show, Snyder was asked if anyone had reached out to him since DC Studios launched on November 1st. While Snyder wished them all the best, the filmmaker confirmed that as of right now, no one had contacted him about working on any further DCU projects. Quote, "As far as I know, which is very little, I'm doing my thing and haven't had anyone give me a call or anything. So I'm just wishing them all the best and hoping that they make some cool movies. For the time being, it doesn't seem as if Snyder is someone they are thinking about. But then again, Gunn and Safran haven't been able to disclose too much yet to the public since the new division was launched. And I personally think that this is kind of like a bad breakup. There's a little bit of a sore spot there for Zack Snyder. I don't see him coming back to the DCU. I think he's like, we're better off as friends. I'm good over here in my own lane. They're good over there in their own lane. I'm doing my own thing. I've moved on. I think he's working on Rebel Moon and other projects, and he's busy doing that. I think he's just closed the door on that chapter of his life, and I don't think he's going to reopen that, because there's also the painful memories of losing his daughter during that time, and then compounded by the fact that Justice League turned out to be such a nightmare for him. I just don't see this going that way again.
Right, and you got to keep in mind that unlike with Henry Cavill's Superman return, there's not this large outcry for Zack Snyder to return. Now, it's very loud, and I would love to see Zack Snyder come back in some capacity. I don't think he should take James Gunn and Peter Safran's job, but I'd love to see another DC-directed Zack Snyder movie. That being said, whether it's in a pocket dimension or a Snyderverse dimension, hell yeah, I'd love to see it. But I know there's at least half of the audience listening right now that are furious just because we're talking about Zack Snyder, and I don't know if James Gunn and Peter Safran's to-do list is bringing back Zack Snyder and pissing off half of that audience. Right. And then there's the other half of the audience that is mad at the other half for getting mad. There's, it's just so toxic when it comes to the Snyderverse, unfortunately. It really sucks because I love Man of Steel. The theatrical cut of Batman vs. Superman kind of pissed me off, but I really liked the Ultimate Edition, and I loved his version of Justice League. And it's not a complete vision. They definitely had a setup for Darkseid and all of that for a sequel to Justice League, and I would love to see that. But then you also get into issues with Amber Heard, and you get into issues with Ezra Miller, and whether or not Ben Affleck would come back, and whether or not Jason Momoa is going to be doing multiple different DC projects to some degree, maybe. I just don't see it happening, unfortunately, but who knows? It's not impossible. Dwayne Johnson did bring back Henry Cavill, or at least he pushed really, really hard for it, and it happened. David Zaslav and Alan Horn went out and got James Gunn, Peter Safran to run DC Studios. It's a great grab. Maybe James Gunn and Peter Safran will look at the audience and say, you know what, there is a large outcry for a Zack Snyder return. Maybe it's not everybody, but there's a large enough of a crowd that's going to warrant a return for Zack Snyder. I don't know if it's going to happen. I would love to see it. I'd be interested to see it, but it definitely should be with some sort of guidelines, maybe restrictions. I don't necessarily think he should be the new Kevin Feige, and not even James Gunn is the Kevin Feige of it all. There's also Peter Safran to back him up and to balance each other out, and I would be
kind of like your Lennon and McCartney.
Sure, and I think that it's a two-man job in this particular situation. Not everybody is Kevin Feige, where you're a world-class producer and great businessman executive. And so I think that this is good for Zack Snyder to be moving on, and I genuinely believe that he has not been contacted and that he does wish them the best. Because he's rooting for guys like Henry Cavill and Jason Momoa and Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck. He's rooting for all those guys. He loves them all. So he's very passionate about his projects, about his DC projects, about his future projects, and he's always been a passionate guy and genuine. So I buy his comments, and I buy your comments that this is probably the end, or at least it's probably been over for a while.
Right, and not only that, but even if we don't know Zack Snyder on a personal level, we don't know if this man is the best person on Earth, the worst person on Earth, or just a normal dude who's somewhere in between, which is the most likely thing. I mean, he did have a really, we have to admit, he did have a really hard time during this whole Justice League fiasco. I mean, there was a lot going on in his life. There was a lot of upheaval with the old regime at Warner Brothers.
Constant chaos, constant undermining and reactionary business practices. And yeah, Warner Brothers was an absolute fucking mess back then.
Right. So it's just like he's moved on and he wanted a little bit more organization, I think, something that was a little more solid for him to grasp onto, and he found that with Rebel Moon, and I think that that is kind of taking him just in a different part of his life. And so I just don't think he'll be back with the DCU. James Gunn, though, says with the DCU that we're going to all have to hold up and wait a while before we get a slate announcement. We're not going to be getting like a phase 1 announcement from DC just yet. The Suicide Squad director has already teased plans to tell the biggest story ever told, he says, so it feels like we've reached a real turning point, and boy, it is sure long overdue. Understandably, fans are now anxious for any kind of slate announcement. Gunn has said that huge stories will be told across movies, TV shows, and animation, so we have to believe the studio has finally allowed them to put together a definitive list of projects that won't remain trapped in development hell or meet the same fate as Batgirl. Taking to his newly launched Mastodon account, Gunn answered a couple of fan questions, including one about a DCU slate reveal. To that, the filmmaker and executive responded, "Give us a chance to catch our breath. We just got here." He also later seemed to debunk reports that the Batman and Joker franchises won't be under his and Safran's purview, confirming that they're overseeing everything DC related. So, to me, this makes sense. They were just announced, a week ago?
So there's two big things right there. Go ahead.
I mean, these two guys just got, one of the biggest projects, which is to turn around this whole DC shit show, pardon my French, that has been happening for the last, 5-6 years. So they're finally going to turn this all around, and I'm excited too, but I mean, it would be impossible to be like, okay, within a week, we have a 10-year plan, we're ready. So, I mean, I think, yeah, we all have to take a minute, step back, let them catch their breath. I'm really excited to hear what they have planned. I'm sure they're discussing, they're formulating plans, they're writing out storyboards. They've got something good going there. And I'm thinking at I don't remember what it's called. The DC Fandom, I think, is what it is.
Yeah, but I don't even think they're honestly at that
I think
stage.
they might actually do it this year, and if they do it, then they're going to have some huge announcements. Or they'll save it for Comic-Con, and we'll have some huge announcements then.
By this year, you mean 2023?
Yes.
Yeah, it's possible, but I think at this stage, honestly, they're still, getting their offices set up. I mean,
Right.
DC Studios didn't exist 3 months ago. Or
They're still wallpapering.
At least we didn't know that it existed if it did. Sure, DC Films was a division back then, but DC Studios is a whole brand new thing, so they're still getting used to their position. Plus, not to mention, James Gunn has still got a Marvel movie coming out
Hell, they're
that he's got to
creating the
market
position.
for. Yeah, they're creating the positions because the positions never existed for this company, or at least this studio. I'm so excited for these two to be able to take over. It's no surprise that we're not going to get a slate anytime soon. I think after Black Adam and The Flash, Aquaman 2, Shazam 2, once we start getting announcements for future projects after that, we'll start to get a better idea for what they have in store. Maybe we'll get no projects. Maybe there'll be nothing for 2 years, 3 years, and they just say, nope, we're rebooting it all. Or maybe they continue with Aquaman 3, Shazam 3, Wonder Woman 3, and they just continuously start to slowly build back towards Justice League or a crossed cinematic universe. They do some sort of soft reboot. Who knows? But they're going to figure it out, and they're going to take the time and patience in order to make sure it gets done right. And I think that is what the DCU has always needed, because Walter Hamada was not a comic book fan when he was given the position of DC Films president, which was just an executive position for Toby Emmerich to have a yes man. And it was, I'm sorry to say, and that's not a knock on Walter Hamada. There were some things that he did movies that he approved that I love, like Joker, like the Batman, like
Right.
Aquaman. You know, there was Shazam. There was some
He was put in a difficult position as well.
sure, and you know, a lot of those films were very director driven, so the directors were given a little bit more room, and they weren't like necessarily restricted to have certain characters forced into their movie, like Batman versus Superman, where they're like saying, "Hey, you gotta have Batman, you gotta have Lex Luthor, Doomsday, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash." You know, there's been some solo movies, which I thought has been really nice, and there's no reason we can't continue that. But also slowly, maybe through post-credit scenes, start to throw, hey, maybe Shazam 2 has Henry Cavill Superman in it, and then Wonder Woman 3 has Henry Cavill Superman and Black Adam in it, and then, you know, the next movie, whether it's a Henry Cavill Superman movie, ends up having the new Flash, whoever that's going to be. You know what I'm saying? They don't have to hard reboot it. They can take their time and flesh it out, and they can continue making movies. Guess what? Before they even really have a plan.
Right, and not only that, as long as they stick to what they're doing and not be so reactionary, I think it's going to turn out a lot better. I think a lot of the problem with the DCEU as it has been the reactionary, like, oh, this isn't going well, we need to just last minute change everything, like they did with Justice League.
Well, they started it with Batman
And
versus
they did it
Superman.
and they did it with Suicide Squad, they did it with Justice League, and I mean, some of those movies I still like because, I mean, they're in the
You
DCU,
can see like
but,
the vision underneath
right, but it's still like a dumpster fire that I can see the vision underneath,
Right.
at least in my opinion. I'm like,
hey, there's a
at least,
painting that's on fire in a dumpster.
right, like at least there's the painting in the dumpster, but the dumpster is still full of trash and it's still on fire.
Yeah.
Like, I think for me, the biggest one that was just disgusting was the freaking editing on the original Suicide Squad movie, because it just looked like a Rob Zombie music video. The light effects, the rainbow, what was going on?
It's just a perfect example of a studio interfering when a studio shouldn't be. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is a perfect example of Kevin Feige, who runs the studio, interfering with the movies, and for the most part, it seems to pay off pretty well. Because look at it. I mean, you can't deny its success.
It's very successful, yeah.
Whereas with movies like Batman vs. Superman and Suicide Squad, Justice League, all went through major reshoots and major studio interference. And well, I shouldn't say nobody. I liked those movies. I didn't love them, but most people didn't like those movies. The general audience, critics were very mixed. Great example of studio interference not working out. I think with James Gunn and Peter Safran there, will be a good example of studio interference because they're creators, they're passionate about the characters and the lore, and they're also got the smart business aspect behind it as well, the corporate decision and how to make it all work without breaking the bank, because that's also what David Zaslav is wanting to do, is utilize the characters that not every character needs $200 million for their movie. Shazam didn't. Harley Quinn won't. Joker won't. There will be other characters that they'll want to use as well. And I'm excited to see it, but it's probably going to be 6 months, maybe even a year, maybe even 2 years before we really know what is going to happen. If it's a reboot, soft reboot, they're calling it the DCU, so they already got a new kind of vision image for it.
Yeah, it's got a new identity.
And it seems like people are already feeling more positive just with that alone, because Walter Hamada himself never once came out and called it the DCU, to my knowledge. I mean, maybe he did, but there was no merchandise ever. There was no ever, logo before a movie that said DCEU.
Right,
it was
always
just
said
DC.
DC.
Right. It was just DC. So I think that's going to change. I think we're going to get a new logo, everything. DC Studios.
The DCEU is shifting the paradigm, the hierarchy. It's shifting to the DCU.
Hey, Dwayne is a man of his word.
Yeah, he promised us change, and girl, I don't know if you were the cause of this, but there's definitely change.
No, he wasn't. Alan Horn. But, all right, what's next?
Well, speaking of change, Stargirl actor Breck Bassinger was kept in the dark about show cancellations, so she definitely didn't see that change coming. Now that Stargirl's cancellation is official, Bassinger opens up about the long process of not knowing if her Arrowverse series would come back. She recently appeared on the Wayne Ayers podcast, where she talks about being kept in suspense regarding Stargirl Season 4, as the conversation continued to change behind the scenes. She said, "I actually found out in May that Stargirl might not be picked up for a 4th season. I was actually flying out to an event for Stargirl when I got the news. But that being said, it wasn't for sure. The next few months became this emotional roller coaster of, yeah, I think it's going to get picked up, or, oh no, we're pitching to a different streaming service. It just became this emotional roller coaster. A big takeaway from Bassinger's experience is that it makes Stargirl's cancellation even worse, especially given the CW's decisions in 2022. For starters, to find out that her show was not coming back for another season right as she was about to head into a Stargirl-related event shows a lack of awareness from the involved parties, as that is not the news one would want to get when about to promote their series. To then not know if Stargirl Season 4 is happening on the CW or on a streaming service definitely doesn't help either. And I honestly just feel bad for her because, I mean, I've never seen the show, but I'm sure she put her heart and soul into it and she worked really hard on it. And to not know if it's like snip, snap, snip, snap. Are we doing it or are we not doing it? Are we doing it or are we not doing it? Like, just give this poor girl an answer. If it's not happening, tell her so she can get start working on getting some other work. So she's not just sitting there and being like, well, I had you guys booked for the next year for shooting, and now I'm screwed because no one's going to book me for anything. And I think that just really messes with her, and it's just messed up. I get that CW is in turmoil right now, and we don't even know if they're going to be doing DC shows, but...
Or shows in general, really.
Right, we have no idea what's going on with that, but at least be a little more transparent with your actors, because you're not going to get any actors that want to work for you if you have that messy-ass reputation. Who wants to work for somebody if you don't know you have job security? I think in any career, if you don't know that you have job security, I mean, no one is completely safe, but if you don't feel at least a little bit secure, then, I mean, what do you have?
Well, I think there's been some actors from the CW, Brandon Rouse, Stephen Amell, over the last few years have kind of come out and kind of complained about how the CW manages their A-star talent. And I think that, this is kind of some of the cracks starting to shine through. But as much praise as we give David Zaslav and as much praise and all the hype we talk about DC Studios and WB Discovery, the things going on with the CW is directly related. It's all happening because of the buyout, because of the merger of WB Discovery. And we knew pretty soon after that the CW was not going to last much longer, at least not the way it was functioning currently. And the shows like the Arrowverse shows and other future DC shows on the CW were now in jeopardy. And it seemed, I'm not sure where Gotham Knights, right?
Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, where Gotham Knights stands, because it's not an Arrowverse show, so I think they're still going to be able to keep it going. WB is still going to be a partial owner, but they're not the main owner anymore. So it is an interesting situation for CW. That being said, you got to communicate with your talent a little bit better, because she right now is being the voice of the voiceless. You know that it's not just her that was left in the dark.
Exactly.
It was all of the cast members, all of the stage lights, the makeup producers, or the makeup artists, the producers, the writers, directors, showrunners probably.
All of the thousands of people that worked on that didn't know that they weren't going to have a job anymore.
Yeah, until last minute, until you're saying, hey, go promote your last season when you thought it was just the current season. It's a really shitty thing to do, and I never watched the show, so maybe it was crap, maybe it deserved to be canceled for all I know. For some reason, I just never was drawn to it. I heard Jay Garrick, played by John Wesley Shipp, was either going to be in it, or maybe he already aired in the newest season, for all I know. But that would have maybe drawn me in if they had brought in the Justice Society, or maybe they brought it over to HBO Max, crossed it over with Superman and Lois. It leaves a question: what is going to happen to Superman and Lois?
That was my biggest worry, because I've already been worrying about it. Like last week, we talked about the fact that CW could possibly be pulling the rug out from underneath that one. And now that this has happened, and there are rumors that DC is just going to get yanked away from the CW, I think it's even more likely that Superman and Lois could be on the chopping block. I hope not, because I think it's one of the better of the Arrowverse shows. Like, especially in terms of production, it just looks better.
Well, if I'm
it's
not
probably
mistaken,
because it has a higher budget, like an HBO type budget.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it's like half produced by HBO or something like that, or HBO.
You might want to fact check us on that.
I'm not entirely sure, but I could have sworn that HBO had some involvement with it.
Right, and I just it's a good show. It's got good family values in it. I mean, for the longest time when we didn't have any updates on what was going on with Superman, that was our Superman, was Tyler Hoechlin, and he did a hell of a job with the role, and he's still doing a good job with the role. So I hope that they don't just yank the rug out from them, too. And I hope that they get to keep going, because, I mean, this sucks for Stargirl. I was never really drawn into the show either, because life is just so busy. But, I mean, whether it's a good show or a bad show, you still treat people with respect. I mean, even if the show was absolute dumpster fire.
It's show friends, it's show business, not show friends.
Well, in
but
good business,
you
want to be respectful. Right, in good business.
Communicate.
Yeah, in good business, you be respectful to your talent, because if you're not, then it makes you look like an asshole, and now you're not getting any more talent that wants to work for you. So all they're doing is shooting themselves in the foot. And she's speaking up about it, so good for her for saying something, honestly.
I mean, honestly, the CW is probably going to rebrand, rename, turn into like a direct housing TV type studio or
like
something.
An HGTV.
Like an HGTV, but like lower budget.
Right,
like reality TV, HGTV.
It's weird that they said, like, last week I remember reading a statistic where their average age for viewers is 52. I'm like,
which is so
really?
crazy. Like, not the demographic you've been shooting for.
No, absolutely not. Especially, like, if you think of back in the day when it was, like, Smallville and the Vampire Diaries, it was like, hello, teens, we're here. Like, I don't think that's happening anymore. And that's what I really kind of envision is teens and young adults for the CW. And it surprises me that it's not that way. So I can definitely see them rebranding, and it's just unfortunate that Stargirl is not going to be part of that. It sucks for them and for everyone working on that show.
I did see that Batwoman is going to make an appearance in season 9 of The Flash, which I think is cool for those that watched Batwoman. I don't have high hopes that The Flash season 9 is going to be good, but I hope it is. I hope they gave it a bigger budget and it knocks it out of the park. Hope it, goes out with a bang, because It is the end of the Arrowverse, and I'll always look back with fond memories, and not everything was great, but I did love a lot of it.
Right, yeah, definitely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Jason Momoa got us all excited this week, but he's clarifying on his statements about his dream project and possibly teasing something else for all of us. In a recent interview with Cinema Blend, Momoa explained that he has actually teased 2 separate projects instead of one massive project. Those 2 have no relation. It was 2 days of amazing news. That one is like beyond. That one trumps the DC one, Momoa said about the November 6th announcement. He also debunked theories that Snyder was Maestro, saying, No. You have to dig deeper. It's the Holy Grail, and it's different than the DC thing, and I really can't say anything. That's it. Although Momoa has not disclosed additional details about his dream DC project, many fans have speculated that it involves the interstellar, mercenary, and bounty hunter Lobo. Gunn recently shared an image of Lobo on social media, and when Momoa was asked about Gunn's post, he responded coyly, "Did he really?" The actor continued, Well, everyone knows I'm a big comic book fan, and so the comic that I collect the most, and I have every comic there is, you can do your research and find out what it is. At this time, a Lobo project involving Momoa has not been announced by Warner Brothers and DC Studios. I think that little nudge, nudge, wink, wink of my favorite person in comics is nudge, nudge, Lobo, wink, wink, Lobo. I think absolutely I could see that happening.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if we're going over or under, okay, play a little game with me. Over or under. I'm going to say over 50% we're getting Lobo with Jason Momoa. What are you going on?
I'm going over because if you just read the comments, you might think, oh, well, he could be playing coy. But if you watch it, he looks visually uncomfortable when the interviewer is like, hey, James Gunn posted a picture of Lobo. And he's like, what? Nuh-uh. Show me. Show me. Like, I don't believe you. James would not do something this obvious. He wouldn't do something this obvious. It reminded me of when Andrew Garfield was asked about Tom Holland saying, hey, Andrew, Tom said that he was going to, in the next Spider-Man movie, there was 3 generations of Spider-Man coming together. And Andrew looked at the interviewer like, what? Dude, no. What are you talking about? It totally reminded me of the same thing. It's not the first time a character or an actor has played 2 different characters in the same universe. We have, I can't remember the actor's name, but the actor that plays the wizard in Shazam and Black Adam also plays one of the Fish Kings in Aquaman. Plus, there's a couple of different actors that play multiple characters in Marvel. Not to mention, so many people right now, especially right now, are screaming for Jason Momoa to play Lobo. I personally still hope to see him continue as Aquaman, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't also love to see him as Lobo, because yeah, he is born to play that character. He looks like the character. A lot of people say his Aquaman already acts like Lobo. So I would love to see both, because Jason Momoa is great, and Jason Momoa totally deserves it. He's a rock star. He's a badass, and he's come a long way as an actor as well. I've loved him for a long time. So I think this is a project that a lot of people would love to see. It's totally up James Gunn's alley, a more obscure character that not a lot of people know, but it is more popular than Black Adam. But I do think that they will probably look at the box office and the budget that Black Adam had, and that should maybe play into this a little bit. I don't think that they would just totally ignore this stumble of a box office result. Now, it was a movie that was started under the old regime, so it probably went under massive different reshoots and recuts, and Lobo, which we're totally going to get, I'm calling it, and so many other people are, will probably not go through as much drama. It's not going to go through a merger. It's not going to go through different reshoots, recuts. But yeah, I'm totally thinking Lobo. I tried to find out if Jason Momoa owns all Lobo comics. I'm sure somebody out there is going to find an old interview from like 15 years ago where he said he owns all the Lobo comics. He's been talking about Lobo since Dwayne Johnson's been talking about Black Adam. I kid you not, it's been like 10, 15 years. So it would be a long time coming for him. He said that there was 2 projects within the last few days. He could be playing coy, or maybe there is something else coming. But what do you think about this? You're not too familiar with Lobo. I'm not too familiar with Lobo. But would you want to see Jason Momoa play a crazy, charismatic character like that? And do you think it would have impact Aquaman at all?
I don't think it would impact Aquaman at all. I think he could comfortably play as both, because Lobo does look so different from Aquaman, and if anything, they could break the 4th wall slightly, with Lobo being like, you look a lot like me, but I'm more handsome than you, or something like that.
Yeah,
you know?
something clever.
Like, Lobo could be a little sassy about it, and I could totally see Momoa rocking this. You know what this kind of reminds me of? With, like, this kind of, like, coy, like, too-hoot, no, totally not. What are you talking about? It reminds me a little bit of, like, whenever Holland spills the beans, and there are people like, Tom, what are you doing? Like, we have to be in interviews with you because you're going to spill the beans. Like, with James Gunn posting that, and then Jason Momoa is just kind of like, dude, what the hell? Like, you're blowing my cover. And I do think it's also like when Andrew Garfield was like, I'm not the werewolf. And also, Charlie Cox is that way, too.
Yeah, but James Gunn posted it on purpose. It was calculated. It was planned out. So that's why I think it's a little different. Like, he's stirring the pot. He totally is.
He's doing it on purpose, and he's doing a fabulous job of it. Because look at us. We're all talking about it. We're all buzzing about it. I think it's also kind of a test to see, like, what would people think of having a Lobo project. And I think a lot of people, I can't say majority, minority, what, but I've seen quite a few people react positively to this. So I think if they continue to get positive reactions, they're going to be like, absolutely move this forward, put this on a fast track, let's get this done. And my theory is that the second project would be Aquaman 3.
He said it was unrelated to DC.
Oh.
It was a bigger project. Something he was more excited about.
Khal Drogo, are
something
you
that
coming
was
back?
bigger than DC. He, like I said, he could be playing coy about whatever that is.
Right.
But I'd like to pose this question. What if it isn't Lobo? We're all so convinced that it's Lobo. What if it's not? There's some other theories that maybe it is Zack Snyder coming back to do Justice League 2. Maybe it's confirmation that Aquaman 3 is going to happen with all of the cuts and the cancellations and all the talk. Maybe he's just super excited that Aquaman 3 is going to happen. Or maybe he's excited Amber Heard is not going to be in Aquaman 3. Maybe he's excited Emilia Clarke has been cast as Mira. And,
That would be a dream.
I mean, that's a fan casting for sure. But, maybe it is something else. Maybe it's not Lobo. But what do you think? Do you think there's any chance that it could be something else?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think it could either be Lobo, it could be Justice League 2, though I think that is the least likely. I think the most likely, honestly, is Lobo. Second most likely would be Aquaman 3. And then the least likely in my mind would be Justice League 2.
I don't know. There's the whole Maestro comment, which a lot of different directors are referred to as Maestro.
Right, but I've seen more people refer to that as Andy Muschietti rather than Zack Snyder.
But there was also that theory, was that Andy Muschietti, after Warner Brothers saw the success, or not the success of The Flash since it hasn't came out yet, but they reportedly are very happy with the film. And there's a lot of different big characters in the film. So they believe that he could maybe work with a big scale, big budgeted film, which he already has with The Flash, with a lot of different characters. Maybe Andy Muschietti is the guy to do Justice League.
I just don't see them booking that right now until after The Flash comes out.
Because they're not really in a good place to do a Justice League movie.
Right. Not only are they not in a good place, I think it would be really dumb if they did. I'm already kind of like, why are we starting The Flash with Flashpoint? But I mean, I think it would be really dumb if we just jumped straight into Justice League 2. It'd be like, are we doing the same shit that the first regime did?
Well, who knows? I mean...
And then I think that, at this point, they don't have the numbers and the reactions back from the audience with The Flash yet. So regardless of whether or not Andy Muschietti is a wonderful director, which I'm sure he is, but still... If this gets a poor reaction, and they've already announced Justice League 2, there might be some hell to pay. So I think if they are planning on that, they're going to sit on that one.
I don't know. You're saying they can't be reactionary. If they wait to see the success of The Flash, then they're just being reactionary, pulling the Justice League 2 out from under the rug because The Flash didn't perform well. Also, Justice League is probably a bigger IP than The Flash. Even though The Flash is my personal favorite character or my personal favorite hero, I'll admit Justice League's probably a bigger IP.
Right. I just don't think that they're ready to do that yet. I think that's probably 4 or 5 years down the road still.
Definitely.
They're probably going to plan it that far out. I think James Gunn is a really smart dude, and so is Peter Safran, and they're like, okay, let's plan that out a ways. So I do think it's still more likely that we're going to get Lobo or Aquaman 3, and he could be playing coy with us and maybe being a little tongue-in-cheek about the second one not being DC related. It could be DC related still, and he's just like, no, it's not, totally not, because he doesn't want to reveal things that shouldn't be.
Right.
Or it could even be an entirely different project of something else that he's really passionate about, and I would have to really dig into Jason Momoa and see what his passions are to even have a guess about that, because he's done a lot of time period pieces like Game of Thrones. He just did one on Apple's streaming, and I can't think of what it is, but it is another time period piece. I mean, didn't he do Conan the Barbarian?
He had
or something
Conan. I can't remember if it was Battlestar Galactica or if it was Stargate. I can't remember one of the two, but...
Right, and it's just he's done science fiction, which is more like Lobo, and he's done time period pieces, so I could see him doing another time period piece if they were doing something like that. I just don't see if James Gunn would be greenlighting that, or if that would be more in Alan Horn's realm of life, because
Right.
James Gunn and Peter Safran are purely doing DC.
I think Alan Horn's just kind of an advisor, just kind of help the process for David Zaslav. I don't think he's necessarily an in charge.
Right.
So James Gunn and Peter Safran, I believe, are just going to answer directly to David Zaslav, which I think is great, because before Walter Amato was having to answer to a committee, then they went to another couple of people, and it was a mess.
Right. So I'm just hoping that, they're ironing out all of the mess, and we'll see what they come up with. I think it's hard to speculate, but I could definitely see Lobo as the most likely thing.
The fact that Jason Momoa is so excited about it, I think, is what makes all of us so more excited about it.
Right, especially because he was like, woo, on Instagram and like freaking out. And we're all like, damn, dude, what's going on?
Yeah, it was like he just scored a touchdown. I mean, it sounds like whatever it is for him, I'm happy for him. Because
he sounds like he got that ball.
Yeah, it sounds like he got 2 big wins this week. So whatever it is, I can't wait to find out what they are.
Well, we only have one more topic left, and we're going to give you, each of us have a top 5 of the upcoming MCU projects. There are 25 projects, I believe, that they have upcoming that are announced, and we're not going to rank all of them. We're just going to give you our top 5. Each of us are going to give our list, and then we'll compare afterward. So I'll start. My 5th that I'm most excited about is Fantastic Four. Number 4 for me is Spider-Man Freshman Year. Number 3 is Spider-Man 4 through 6. Those movies, I believe all 3 of them are announced, or at least Spider-Man 4 is, and I'm excited for that. Daredevil Born Again is my second one, because I'm really interested to see how that's going to look compared to the original Daredevil show. And number 1, of course, for me is Deadpool 3, because I am excited to see how they brought back Hugh Jackman into this. So I'm like, oh, I'm ready. I've been waiting since Deadpool 2 for us to have Deadpool 3. I've been like, we've been taking way too damn long on this. I mean, Spider-Man is one of my favorite characters in Marvel. As you can tell, there's 2 Spider-Man things on my list. I mean, I've always liked Spider-Man ever since I was a little kid. So I'm always wanting to see more Spider-Man, see where they take the character. And I think Tom Holland does a really good job. So I'm excited to see where they take his character, especially after the end of No Way Home. They kind of left us on a cliffhanger there. I mean, he's not in a relationship with MJ as of right now, and he's completely made his own new suit, and he's just on his own in his apartment. So it's kind of where, we envision Peter Parker kind of in Spider-Man 2, the original one with Tobey Maguire, is kind of in that stage in his life where he's living in a crappy apartment. He's kind of on the outs with MJ. So I think we're kind of picking up in that era. And I'm excited to see what Tom Holland, where he takes that, where they run with it. So what are your rankings?
Will you give your list again?
Yes. So I have 5 is Fantastic Four. 4 is Spider-Man Freshman Year. 3 is Spider-Man 4, possibly through 6 if they go that many. 2 is Daredevil Born Again, and number 1 is Deadpool 3.
All right, so we have a fairly similar list here.
We did not discuss these, by the way, before we came into this.
No, we did not. And, there's 25 projects coming up, and there's at least 10, 15 that I'm probably at least mildly excited about. So this was a hard list. And as soon as we get a trailer for one of these shows or movies, that this list could definitely easily change one way or another, up or down. Like Secret Invasion, when it was announced, I had 0 excitement for it. When I saw the trailer, I was like, boom, I'm excited for it. That being said, unfortunately, Secret Invasion did not make it to my list. It was so close, but I am super excited for it. That being said, number 5 is going to be Loki Season 2. I unabashedly, unapologetically am a big fan of the first season of Loki. I don't think every episode was great 5 stars, but as for the MCU TV series, it was, or the Disney Plus series.
There's so many damn streaming services.
Yeah, right. It was the first of the Disney Plus Marvel series that I could really grasp my teeth into. I liked WandaVision, but Loki was just a character that I got into a little bit more, and the whole science fiction timey-wimey crap that was going on, I just liked that a little bit more and just got more into it. So I just have been a bigger fan of Loki for a lot longer. I was just more interested into his character more, And for that reason, and the ending was just such a big cliffhanger that I just cannot wait to see how it impacts not only Loki as a character, the show overall, but the MCU going forward, not to mention the introduction to Kang. And who doesn't love Owen Wilson? I mean, this is one of my favorite Owen Wilson roles, and I cannot wait to see their dynamic again in season 2. But number 4, the new co-president of CEO of DC Studios, James Gunn's directed Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Now, I was not the world's biggest fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy movie when it first came out, but over years, the first 2 movies really grew on me. And after seeing the Suicide Squad, seeing what he could do with a large cast, with really basically the reins pulled back a little bit, given a little bit more gas, being a little more creative freedom and kind of more R-rated content, made me more excited for his future projects and to see what else he can do. And that is why Guardians of 3, not only am I more excited for it, but also it's going to be his final Marvel project for probably a few years. Because it sounds like he signed a 4-year deal, if I'm not mistaken, with DC Studios. So it's probably 4 years he's not going to be able to do anything with Marvel. So for that reason, I'm excited to see Guardians 3 and this cast for the final time. Number 3, Spider-Man 4, or whatever they're going to call it, Back to Home. Tom Holland's return. Spider-Man No Way Home would be a good way to leave off for his character, and he said in an interview, probably just to stir the pot, that he was actually thinking about stepping away from Spider-Man just because this movie with Andrew and Tobey at his side would be a great way to walk off into the sunset. But Spider-Man is one of the best Marvel characters ever, and I cannot wait to see what they do with his character moving forward. He's got a clean slate, no more Iron Man Jr. suits, no more over-tech. For anybody that was complaining about it, I was to a certain degree, especially in, I think, Far From Home. But over the last few movies, it seemed like it was getting better, and I cannot wait to see that new suit up close in the sunshine, and it's going to be great. I can't wait to see him grow and to see him maybe even go through college. Who knows? Number 2, one of the best comic book series of all time, one of my favorite shows of all time, was the Netflix Marvel Daredevil. So Daredevil Born Again is my number 2. So glad to have Charlie Cox back. Who isn't, right? I mean, whether you liked what they did with him in She-Hulk or not, I really don't think it's going to have any impact at all on this show. Kevin Feige basically let the She-Hulk showrunner do whatever they wanted with Daredevil. The only thing he said was, hey, make his suit look like the Netflix suit and make it yellow. So that's what they did. And it looks great. So I don't know if that's the suit they're going to go with moving forward. To me, it really doesn't matter if it's red, if it's black, if it's yellow. It's Charlie Cox. It's Daredevil, and I'm all in for it. I also am really excited to see what they do with an 18-episode arc. But it was really hard not to put it at my number 1. But because the Disney Plus Marvel shows have been a little lackluster, a little bit hit and miss for me, definitely some wins, but definitely some misses at times. So I really hope they don't miss with Daredevil, because Daredevil is very special to me. Don't miss Disney, don't miss Marvel. Number 1, Deadpool 3, because it seems like they as in Marvel and Disney, have their hands really off the wheel on Deadpool 3. It seems like it's really Ryan Reynolds and his team and what they would have made if it stayed under Fox. And it's going to really be the final end of an era, not just for Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, which I cannot wait to see. It's going to be a legendary return, I'm sure. Not just the end of Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds potentially. Who knows? Maybe he'll return for Avengers Secret War, and who knows? That'd be amazing. But it'll also kind of be the end of the Fox X-Men movies in a way. I mean, he wasn't like totally connected to any particular timeline. It was very loosely connected here and there.
Stewart or McAvoy, these timelines are so confusing.
Right. I love that shit, right? Who doesn't? But Fox, under Fox, they were able to make movies like Deadpool 2, like Logan, like Days of Future Past. And I don't know if Marvel, Disney, MCU would make movies like that. We're going to find out with Deadpool 3. Hopefully, we'll find out with other projects. Maybe Daredevil Born Again will be a little
I
more
want Deadpool
grittier.
on that show.
Maybe
That would be
on Daredevil?
Yeah, like he just shows up for one episode. That would be fucking hysterical.
I mean, you would think that if he was going to show up in an MCU show, it'd probably be
Be
something like She-Hulk,
oh my
right?
god, that would be hysterical. To
But
both
I don't
break the
know,
fourth
maybe
wall.
2 fourth wall breaking characters. Yeah, that might have been a bit much, honestly. It might have been a bit much.
Maybe too much goofiness, possibly.
Maybe throw Deadpool in with like the Punisher. Someone super
Oh,
serious
that would be
with
good.
someone like Deadpool, yeah. But hey, my wallet is open, Disney. You can send your checks anytime. But that makes it my list. So sorry to go off on a tangent, but number 5, Loki season 2, fight me. Number 4, Guardians 3. Number 3, Spider-Man 4 or Spider-Man Back Home, whatever it's going to be called. Number 2, Daredevil Born Again. And number 1, Deadpool 3.
I think that's pretty solid list.
It is a great fucking list. It's the best list out there. No, I'm just kidding. I can't wait to see what your guys' lists are. Like we said, there's 25 other projects out there, like Wakanda Forever this weekend. We got the holiday special coming up. Ant-Man 3, cannot believe it did not make my list. Got Echo, The Marvels, Ironheart, Agatha. I mean, there's so many out there. Captain America, New World Order,
Right,
The
and-
Avengers, King Dynasty and Secret Wars, Armor Wars, the Wakanda series, Wonder Man, Blade. You had a great one, Fantastic Four. There's so many others out there, and of course, you can only pick 5. So good luck making your list.
Right, and not only that, but as we see trailers, our lists are going to drastically change. Because I could see that
Exactly.
Fantastic Four trailer and be like, oh, absolutely not, ma'am.
Well, hey, maybe I see the Daredevil Born Again trailer. Maybe we see the Deadpool 3 trailer, and it's just like, oh, God.
I don't know about if it'll be oh god, unless I see Mickey Mouse pop up on screen, I'll be like, oh no.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you could have
have
Hugh
they done?
Jackman and Ryan Reynolds on a couch for 2 hours, and it would still be funny.
Right, I mean, there are so many good comedic moments, even with Wolverine. I don't remember which X-Men movie it was. It might have been Days of Future Past. Go in the past, they're like, hey, we need your help. And he goes, go fuck yourself.
I think it was First Class. Yeah, First
Yeah,
Class.
and it was funny. It's like, go fuck yourself.
It was his only
"All right,
line
bye."
in the movie.
Yeah.
It was his only line in the movie.
You're like, all right, bye. We're leaving. Enjoy your cigar and your whiskey. We're leaving. Bye.
Yeah.
But those are just our lists, guys, and it's all in good fun. So just let us know down in the comments, what are your top 5 MCU projects and
Or most anticipated
Anticipated.
upcoming MCU projects.
Right, exactly. Thank you for clarifying. And, guys, that'll do it for us. Thank you for tuning in to the Speed Force Media podcast this week. If you liked this episode and you're listening on YouTube, please don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, and subscribe to our channel if you're feeling fancy for more content in the world of movies, TV, video games, and entertainment. If you're listening on Spotify, Samsung Podcasts, Amazon Music, or another podcast directory, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review, as it does help us reach more listeners like you.
Don't forget to come back tomorrow for the Slasher Saturday podcast, where we're talking about Friday the 13th, part 1, where my wife, Eleanor, never seen. So it's going to be a first-time watch. We're celebrating the announcement of Camp Crystal Lake. It's a series coming out by Brian Fuller. Maybe it'll be dog crap. Either way, we're doing a Friday the 13th watch because fuck it, we want to.
Exactly. Thank you guys so much. Have a fantastic week, and remember to iron your capes.